You followed the instructions, every single one of them. You counted your carbohydrates the way your doctor explained. You watched your portion sizes at every meal. You took your medication on time, every day, without missing a dose. You made the changes. You did the work. You were consistent. So, why is your fasting glucose still climbing? Why did your A1C creep up half a point at your last appointment? Why are you eating less than you ever have in your life? Doing everything right by every measure you were given, and the numbers keep moving in the wrong direction. I want to give you an honest answer to that question today. And I have to tell you up front, it took me a significant amount of time to fully understand this myself. But once I did, it changed the way I think about blood sugar management entirely. Here is what most people are never told. The problem is not how many carbohydrates you eat. It is not even which carbohydrates you choose. The problem, the real problem at the root of why blood sugar management is so difficult for so many people over 60 is how fast those carbohydrates reach your bloodstream, the speed, the velocity at which sugar floods your blood after a meal. That is where the damage begins. That is where, quietly and invisibly, the complications accumulate year after year. And there is one seed, one tiny ancient seed, smaller than a grain of rice, that physically intervenes in that process. Not through a drug compound, not through an expensive pharmaceutical extract, not through any synthetic mechanism whatsoever. Through a gel, a natural gel that forms inside your digestive tract and physically slows everything down, buying your body the time it needs to handle glucose properly. I'm going to show you exactly how this works. The clinical trials, the biological mechanism, the 7 distinct benefits this seed provides, the mistakes that cancel those benefits entirely. And the one benefit I save for last, the one I genuinely believe every endocrinologist in the country should be discussing openly with every patient they see. But they are not. And I'm going to explain exactly why that silence is costing you more than you realize. I am Dr. James. Welcome back to Senior Vitality Secrets. Before I get into the ranked list of benefits, I need to address something first, because I do not want you to hear the word seed and immediately dismiss this as another wellness trend, another health food store gimmick dressed up in scientific language. This is not a supplement. It is not a pill. It is not some exotic extract shipped from a country you have never heard of, with a label written in a language you cannot read. This is a food, a real whole food that costs approximately $3 a bag at virtually any grocery store in the country. It has been eaten by human beings for over 5,000 years. The Aztecs, and I do not usually spend much time on historical background because that is not where the value lies, but this detail is worth knowing. The Aztecs called this their running food. Warriors carried it into battle. A single tablespoon mixed with water sustained their energy for hours without spiking their blood sugar, without the crash that follows. And modern clinical research from universities in Toronto, Chile, and Kuwait has confirmed with extraordinary precision exactly why that was true. What frustrates me, genuinely frustrates me, is this. The supplement industry generates billions of dollars every year selling people isolated compounds in pill form that their bodies absorb at roughly 30% efficiency, sometimes less. That means for every dollar you spend on those supplements, 70 cents is essentially wasted, passed through your system without being absorbed. The companies producing those supplements have always known this. This seed, your body absorbs it at close to full capacity. Because it is food, your digestive system evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to process food, not isolated compounds compressed into tablets. And it does not deliver one nutrient. It delivers 7 distinct mechanisms, all working simultaneously, all reinforcing each other, all targeting different stages of the blood sugar problem at the same time. 7 mechanisms from one food. Before I show you those 7 benefits, I want to clear up 3 myths that are circulating widely about this seed. Because if you go into this with the wrong expectations, you will miss the real value entirely and potentially give up before the benefits have a chance to accumulate. Myth 1. This seed will cure your diabetes. No, I need to be absolutely clear about this. That is not what the research shows, not even close. Anyone using the word cure alongside any food is either misinformed, has not read the actual clinical literature, or is trying to sell you something. What the research genuinely demonstrates is that this seed can meaningfully reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes through a physical mechanism that operates inside your digestive tract. It slows absorption. It does not eliminate the underlying disease. It is a tool, a remarkably powerful and well-documented tool that works alongside your medication, alongside your dietary choices, alongside everything else you are already doing, but a tool. Myth 2. You need to eat large quantities for it to work. Also incorrect. Clinical trials have measured significant reductions in post-meal blood sugar with doses as small as 7 grams, which is roughly 1 teaspoon. A 2013 dose-response trial specifically tested 7 grams, 15 grams, and 24 grams. All 3 doses produced measurable reductions. You do not need to eat enormous quantities or make elaborate preparations. 1 to 2 tablespoons used correctly, and I will explain exactly how at the end of this video is sufficient to meaningfully change what happens inside your gut after every meal. Myth 3. Food does not matter. Just take your medication and stop looking for alternatives. I have heard versions of this from physicians, and I want to address it directly and fairly. Metformin is an excellent medication. It is one of the most studied, most reliable diabetes medications in existence. I have enormous respect for it, and for the millions of people whose lives it has genuinely improved. I am not arguing against your medication, not even slightly, but here is the important distinction. Metformin works primarily by reducing glucose production in your liver, a process called hepatic gluconeogenesis. That is its primary mechanism. It does almost nothing to slow the absorption of sugar from your food as it passes through your small intestine. That is a completely different mechanism, a completely different stage of the metabolic process, and that is precisely where this seed works. It fills a gap that your medication was never designed to address. They are not competing, they are complementary. So, what is this seed? It is chia, Salvia hispanica, a tiny black and white seed from the mint family, botanically related to lavender and rosemary, and the clinical evidence behind chia and blood sugar management is deep, specific, peer-reviewed, and growing every single year. Let me show you exactly what it does inside your body. 7 benefits, ranked from important to life-changing. We are going from 7th to 1st. And benefit number 1 is the reason I made this video. Benefit 7. Omega-3 fatty acid delivery. I anticipate your reaction. Omega-3s? I thought this was about blood sugar. I thought omega-3s were for heart health. Stay with me, because this connection is more important than most people realize, particularly after 60. Chia seeds are among the richest plant sources of alpha-linolenic acid, the plant form of omega-3 fatty acids. 1 ounce, which is approximately 2 tablespoons, provides roughly 5 grams of ALA. That is more omega-3 than most fish oil supplements deliver in an entire day. And you are getting it from food, not from a capsule that leaves an unpleasant aftertaste for hours afterward. Here is where it connects directly to blood sugar. Chronic low-grade inflammation, the kind that builds silently over decades, the kind you cannot feel, is one of the primary drivers of insulin resistance. Your cells do not simply decide one morning to stop responding to insulin. They stop responding because inflammatory signals, specifically inflammatory proteins called cytokines, are interfering with the communication between insulin and your cell receptors. Here is a way to visualize what that means. Imagine trying to make a phone call during a severe electrical storm. Your phone is working, the cell tower is working, the signal exists. But the interference from the storm is so intense that the message cannot get through clearly. That is precisely what chronic inflammation does to insulin signaling. The insulin is present in your bloodstream. Your receptors are present on your cells. But the inflammatory interference is so disruptive that the signal gets lost before it can produce the response your body needs. Alpha-linolenic acid from chia seeds has been demonstrated in multiple studies to reduce inflammatory markers including C-reactive protein, interleukin-6, and TNF-alpha. Not dramatically overnight. No responsible scientist claims that. But steadily, consistently, over weeks and months of daily consumption, it quiets the inflammatory noise so that your insulin signals can actually reach your cells and do their job. Is this the most powerful benefit of chia seeds? No. That is why it is seventh on this list. But think of it as the foundation, the underlying condition that determines how effectively everything else on this list is able to work. If your body is living in a state of chronic inflammation, nothing performs as well as it should. Not your medication, not dietary changes, not exercise. Inflammation is sand in the gears of every metabolic process in your body. And this matters for another critical reason. Your body cannot manufacture omega-3 fatty acids on its own. It does not have the enzyme pathway to produce them. They must come from food. If you are not eating fatty fish 3 times per week, which most people over 60 are not doing consistently, there is a meaningful probability that you are deficient in omega-3s. And if you are deficient, your insulin resistance has one additional factor working against it that you may never have considered. 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, 5 grams of ALA, approximately 12 cents per serving. That is your anti-inflammatory foundation. Benefit 6, complete protein with all essential amino acids. This one surprises most people because chia is typically thought of as a fiber food. The small seeds that absorb water and form a gel-like texture, but chia seeds contain between 15 and 25% protein by weight. And unlike the majority of plant protein sources, unlike beans, unlike rice, unlike wheat, chia provides all 9 essential amino acids, the complete set. That is genuinely rare for any plant food. Why does that matter for blood sugar? This is where it becomes personal for many of the people watching this video. Muscle tissue is your #1 glucose disposal system. I need you to hear that clearly and remember it. Your skeletal muscle, the muscle throughout your body that allows you to move, stand, walk, and carry things, is the single largest tissue in your body that absorbs glucose from your bloodstream. When you eat carbohydrates and insulin signals your body to clear the resulting glucose from your blood, where does the majority of it go? Into your muscles. 70 to 80% of glucose disposal after a meal occurs in skeletal muscle. But after 60, you are losing muscle mass, approximately 3 to 8% per decade, in a process called sarcopenia. And every pound of muscle you lose represents reduced capacity to pull glucose out of your bloodstream. Less tissue, fewer receptors, less absorption capacity. So, your blood sugar rises, not necessarily because you are eating more carbohydrates, not because your medication has stopped working, but because you have fewer places to put the glucose. Your body's capacity to clear it has diminished. This is, and I want to be completely direct with you here, one of the most underdiagnosed contributors to worsening blood sugar in people over 60. Doctors look at glucose numbers, they look at HbA1c, they adjust medications, but they rarely measure muscle mass. The conversation where a physician says your blood sugar is rising because you have lost significant muscle mass since your last assessment almost never happens. The tools to measure it exist. The conversation simply does not happen often enough. Chia protein supports muscle maintenance. I want to be clear about what that means. 2 tablespoons of chia seeds will not replace the protein in a complete meal. That is not what I am suggesting. But consumed daily, as part of a consistent dietary pattern, it contributes to preserving the muscle tissue that forms the foundation of your body's glucose management system. And there is an additional mechanism worth understanding. When you eat chia seeds alongside a carbohydrate-containing meal, the protein content itself helps slow gastric emptying. Protein digests significantly more slowly than simple carbohydrates. That means the sugar from that meal enters your bloodstream more gradually, not in a rush. In a trickle. The protein is doing 2 things simultaneously. It is protecting the muscle tissue that keeps your blood sugar under control over time, and it is actively slowing the glucose spike from the current meal. Benefit 5. Antioxidant protection for your pancreas. Let me draw your attention to something before I explain this benefit. The first 2 benefits I described are support systems. Omega-3s reduce the inflammatory interference blocking your insulin signaling. Protein preserves the muscle tissue that absorbs your glucose. Both of those are critically important. But benefit 5 goes after something different. It addresses the organ that produces insulin in the first place. Your pancreas is a small organ, approximately 6 inches long, positioned behind your stomach near your spine. Most people give it very little thought until something goes wrong, and it has one job that determines nearly everything about your blood sugar management: producing insulin through specialized cells called beta cells. After 60, your pancreatic beta cells are under sustained attack, and this is something that does not receive nearly enough attention in standard medical conversations. The attack comes from oxidative stress, free radicals, reactive oxygen species, which scientists abbreviate as ROS. These are unstable molecules that move through your cells, damaging proteins, membranes, and DNA as they go. Over years of accumulated damage, your pancreas produces progressively less insulin, not because it has lost the will to function, but because the cellular machinery is physically deteriorating. The manufacturing equipment is corroding. Chia seeds contain a collection of polyphenolic antioxidant compounds, including chlorogenic acid, caffeic acid, miracetin, quercetin, and kaempferol. These compounds neutralize free radicals before they can reach your beta cells. They intercept the damaging molecules before they reach the cellular machinery. Think of it this way: your pancreas is a manufacturing facility. Oxidative stress is rust. The rust accumulates on the equipment year after year, gradually slowing production. Antioxidants are rust protection. They do not rebuild machinery that has already been damaged, but they meaningfully slow the deterioration of the machinery that is still functioning. Does this mean chia seeds will regenerate your pancreas? No, that would be dishonest to claim. Once beta cells are destroyed, the science is clear that they do not regenerate easily. But can chia seeds help protect the beta cells that are still working, still producing insulin, still fighting to maintain your metabolic health? The research strongly suggests yes. Quercetin in particular has received significant research attention in the context of diabetes. It has been shown to simultaneously prevent the oxidation of fats, proteins, and DNA, 3 layers of cellular protection from a single naturally occurring compound found in one food. Here is what I find genuinely difficult to reconcile. Quercetin is available as an isolated supplement for $20 to $30 per bottle, or you can eat 2 tablespoons of chia seeds that cost approximately 12 cents and receive quercetin alongside chlorogenic acid, caffeic acid, miracetin, and kaempferol, all in the ratios and combinations that nature designed them to work in together. Your body processes compounds from whole food differently than isolated compounds from supplements. The absorption pathways are different. The synergistic interactions between compounds are different. It is not the same thing, and the people selling $30 supplement bottles understand that. Benefit 4. Post-meal glucose reduction. The clinical evidence. Now we are moving into the hard science, the peer-reviewed, double-blind, published in major journals category of evidence. And this is the benefit that most people associate with chia seeds when they first encounter the research, even though it is only 4th on my list. Stay with me through benefits 2 and 1, and you will understand why. Researchers at the University of Toronto, led by Dr. Vladimir Vuksan, one of the world's leading authorities on dietary fiber and glycemic response, conducted multiple clinical trials specifically examining what chia seeds do to post-meal blood sugar. The technical term for this is postprandial glycemia, the blood sugar spike that occurs within 1 to 2 hours after eating. In a 2010 randomized controlled trial published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition, Dr. Vuksan's team found that whole-grain chia seeds significantly reduced the postprandial glucose response in participants compared to the control group. The mechanism they identified was not enzyme inhibition. It was not insulin stimulation. It was the mucilage, the gel-like coating that forms around chia seeds when they contact liquid, physically slowing the rate at which sugar moved from the intestinal environment into the bloodstream. Physical, not chemical. A mechanical slowing of absorption. In a follow-up dose-response trial published in 2013 in the same journal, researchers specifically tested 3 different doses of chia seeds and confirmed that both whole and ground chia reduced post-meal blood glucose in healthy volunteers. The relationship was dose-dependent, meaning the more chia was consumed, the greater the reduction in glucose. It was linear, predictable, and reproducible. That is exactly the pattern you want to see in clinical data. A 2020 study from Spain used something called the SIM system, a dynamic gastrointestinal simulation. This is a machine designed to replicate the complete digestive environment inside your body. Not a laboratory dish, not a simple test tube experiment, but a system that replicates stomach acid, intestinal enzymes, absorption rates, and transit time simultaneously. They introduced chia seed mucilage into this system and measured glucose absorption. The result was up to a 50% reduction in glucose bioavailability at the intestinal level. The glucose dialysis retardation index, which measures how much the mucilage delayed sugar from passing through the intestinal barrier, peaked at over 53% by the end of small intestine digestion. I want to be completely honest with you here, because honesty is more important to me than presenting a perfect picture. A 2020 meta-analysis, which pooled data from 8 randomized controlled trials involving 362 participants, found that chia seeds did not significantly reduce fasting blood glucose or HbA1c when all the data was combined. That is an important finding. I am not going to minimize or hide it. It tells us clearly that chia seeds are not a fasting glucose medication. They will not reliably lower your morning number. They are not a replacement for your medication. Anyone claiming otherwise is not being truthful with you. But here is the distinction that most people miss entirely, and it is critical. Chia seeds target the post-meal spike, the surge in blood sugar that happens in the hours after eating. And if you are over 60 managing type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, those post-meal spikes are where the quiet, cumulative damage occurs. Every spike is a wave of excess glucose pressing against your blood vessel walls, against the tiny capillaries feeding your kidneys, against the delicate nerve endings in your feet and hands. Chia does not stop the river. It slows it to a manageable stream. And over months and years, the difference between a river and a stream is the difference between progressive complications and meaningful control. Benefit 3. Blood pressure reduction in diabetic patients. I anticipate that some of you are questioning why blood pressure belongs in a video about blood sugar, and that question reveals something important. Blood sugar and blood pressure are not separate problems, operating in independent systems. They are the same underlying problem expressing itself through 2 different pathways in your body. Understanding that connection makes everything I am about to explain immediately logical. A 2021 randomized controlled trial took 42 adults with confirmed type 2 diabetes and divided them into 2 groups. One group consumed 40 grams of chia seeds per day for 12 weeks, added on top of their existing diet and medication. The other group changed nothing. Same medications, same lifestyle, same dietary habits, simply no chia. The chia group showed a statistically significant reduction in systolic blood pressure compared to the control group. Systolic pressure is the top number in your blood pressure reading, the one that your cardiologist monitors most closely, the one most strongly associated with stroke risk. And these were people already being medically managed for diabetes. The chia produced measurable benefits on top of their existing treatment. Now, let me explain the connection that makes this relevant to blood sugar, because it is not immediately obvious. When your blood pressure is chronically elevated, even moderately, even in the range your doctor might describe as slightly high but not immediately concerning, it gradually damages the small blood vessels that supply your kidneys. Most people think of kidneys as a waste filtration system. That is accurate but incomplete. Your kidneys also actively regulate blood sugar through a process called renal glucose reabsorption. When kidney function is compromised, blood sugar control deteriorates further. The cycle looks like this. High blood sugar damages blood vessel walls. Damaged blood vessels contribute to elevated blood pressure. Elevated blood pressure damages kidney tissue. Damaged kidneys impair blood sugar regulation, which further damages blood vessels, which raises blood pressure further, which causes more kidney damage. Round and round, year after year, each rotation making the situation incrementally worse. Most people do not feel this happening until something significant breaks. Chia seeds interrupt this cycle at multiple points simultaneously. The fiber slows sugar absorption, reducing the glucose spikes that initiate vessel damage. The omega-3 fatty acids reduce inflammation in blood vessel walls, protecting vessel integrity and flexibility. The naturally occurring potassium and magnesium in chia support what is called vascular relaxation, meaning they help your blood vessels maintain elasticity rather than becoming progressively stiffer with age. This is not addressing one problem from one angle. It is applying beneficial pressure to the entire destructive cycle from multiple directions at once. A 2017 randomized controlled trial involving 77 patients with diabetes, conducted double-blind over 6 months, found that the Chaya group experienced a 39% reduction in C-reactive protein, which is the gold standard biomarker for systemic inflammation in the body. 39% from adding a seed to their daily diet, not from a statin, not from a biologic injection, not from a new pharmaceutical compound requiring a prescription, from a seed that costs $3 a bag at any grocery store in America. That data exists. It is published. It is peer-reviewed. It is accessible to any physician who chooses to look for it. And the number of times I have personally heard an endocrinologist bring this information up in a patient conversation is 0. Here is your practical action plan. 5 steps. Clear, simple, and completely manageable. Step 1. Go to any grocery store in your area. Walmart, Costco, Trader Joe's, your local supermarket. Find chia seeds in the health food section or near the baking supplies. Organic is preferable if available, but regular chia is perfectly fine. Black or white chia seeds have virtually identical nutritional profiles. The bag should cost between $3 and $6 and will last you 3 to 4 weeks. Step 2. Begin with 1 tablespoon per day. Put 1 tablespoon of chia seeds into a glass, add 6 to 8 ounces of water, stir well, and wait 10 minutes. You will see the water thicken as the gel forms. Drink the entire glass approximately 15 to 20 minutes before your largest meal of the day. That is the complete protocol for your first week. Nothing more complicated than that. Step 3. In your second week, if you are tolerating it well with no digestive discomfort or unusual bloating, increase to 2 tablespoons per day. Split the dose. 1 tablespoon soaked in water before your largest meal. 1 tablespoon stirred into your breakfast, whether that is oatmeal, a smoothie, or plain yogurt, always with liquid, never dry. Step 4. After 30 days of consistent daily use, request a specific test at your next doctor appointment, not your fasting glucose. Your post-meal glucose, measured 2 hours after a standardized meal, that is where chia seeds produce their most measurable effect. Your fasting glucose number may not show dramatic change, and that is consistent with what the meta-analysis found, but your post-meal spike, that is the target, and that is where the results will be most evident. Step 5. Track your personal experience. Get a simple notebook. Every day, write down 3 things. Your energy level after meals on a scale of 1 to 10. Your food cravings between meals, better than before, about the same, or worse. And if you check your own blood sugar at home, you're reading it 2 hours after your largest meal. Do this for 30 days. The data you collect about your own body from your own direct experience is more personally meaningful than any clinical trial I can describe. You are the study. Your results matter. 1 food, 12 cents per serving. 5 mechanisms of blood sugar management addressed simultaneously. That is what informed control looks like. At Senior Vitality Secrets, our commitment to you is this. We will always bring you health information that is honest, research-based, practical, and genuinely applicable to your daily life. Not filtered through commercial interests, not shaped by what is convenient or profitable. Just the truth about what decades of peer-reviewed science actually demonstrates. You deserve that. You have always deserved that. Start with step 1 this week. Buy a bag of chia seeds. Begin with 1 tablespoon soaked in water before your largest meal. That single change, sustained consistently over time, addresses 5 of the biological mechanisms driving your blood sugar challenges every day. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Thank you for trusting Senior Vitality Secrets with your health. If this video gave you something genuinely valuable, please share it with someone in your life who might benefit. A family member, a neighbor, a friend managing diabetes or pre-diabetes, because the people who profit from keeping chronic disease undertreated will not share it on your behalf. Subscribe to Senior Vitality Secrets. Leave a comment below telling me which of these 7 benefits surprised you the most. Was it the GLP-1 connection, the same pathway as Ozempic, triggered naturally by a $3 bag of seeds? Was it the pancreatic protection, the blood pressure research? I read every comment, and your responses directly shape what I cover next. In our next video, we are going to examine the 7 worst foods for stroke risk in people over 60. And the number 1 food on that list is something most people eat every single day. It has absolutely nothing to do with salt. Nothing. I think it will genuinely surprise you. Until then, take care of your body. Stay consistent with these habits. And remember that real lasting health is built one small, sustainable, well-informed choice at a time. I am Dr. James. This is Senior Vitality Secrets, and I will see you in the next video.